Welcome, DC action figure fans, back to another inside look behind the scenes of how toys are made, with myself, Scott, ToyGuru Neitlich. I was with Mattel for many, many years and had the absolute privilege of getting to work on what, my bias aside, would say was the greatest DC toy line of all time, DC Universe Classics. Now, the thing about licenses like DC is they switch hands a lot. I mean, Mattel had it for, quite a while. Before Mattel had it, Kenner had it, which was acquired by Hasbro. So it's not uncommon for licenses to change around. In fact, right now, Spin Master actually has the majority of the DC license. There is some product from McFarlane Toys, and I talk a little bit more about that in my splicing video about how licenses are cut up these days instead of a master license. But you can get awesome DC toys from Spin Master. And now that the license is no longer with Mattel, I wanted to take some time to reflect back on kind of the very beginning of the line and some stuff that never made it out. What I'm talking about is the DC Superheroes line. So this was the precursor to DC Universe Classics. Before Mattel, in about 2008, got the license for the entire DC Universe, they just had the license for the two major DC superheroes, and that being Batman and, big shocker, Superman, which meant that Mattel could make figures based on these characters and their supporting cast. They couldn't make Green Lantern or Flash or Wonder Woman, but anyone in those lines. Now, there were quite a few things that were dropped during this period as it made its transition from DC Superheroes into DC Universe Classics. So I want to take you back in time and look at kind of what was happening at the very tail end of the DC Superheroes line as it made its transition into DC Universe Classics. All right, so to set the stage, it's important to look at what was happening in the action figure industry. Toy Biz was kicking butt with Marvel Legends, and they were including these really awesome, huge, oversized bases with their figures. This is before the Build-A-Figure trend happened, which they also started with Galactus and Sentinel. But before that, they came with these really big bases. So as Mattel was making the transition from the DC Superheroes line, which was just Batman and Superman characters, their villains and their supporting cast, they were looking heavily at what was happening in the industry and saw that, Toy Biz is making these great bases. And that was something that was explored very heavily for the DC Superheroes line. So, as an example, characters like Scarecrow here, who got released with his, awesome Scythe. Scythe is Darth Vader, right? Well, originally, he wasn't just going to come with the scythe. He was going to come with this really cool, giant, scarecrowy fear base. Is that how you describe it? I guess nightmare base that, he would have been able to pose on. Here's kind of another view. So this was basically mimicking what Toy Biz was doing with Marvel Legends at the time, and the final few waves of DC superheroes before they became DCU Classics, to include a Build-A-Figure, were going to not just be a figure, like, Bane here is another example. He was in kind of one of the final waves. They were going to include really big display bases. But for a variety of reasons, they had to be cut. Mostly it was a cost issue and a packaging issue, but I wanted to kind of show you what sort of could have been and what had been planned before budgets and logistics had to remove them. So Bane would have had this cool grate with this wiring that he was ripping apart, it was sort of like a base he could hold. Well, I guess that's kind of an accessory, but it was going to match the bottom base that he was going to be able to stand on and display. But again, logistics and costs got in the way, and this didn't make it the final product. Another one was a bat signal that was going to be coming with Batman. Obviously, Batman. Well, I guess it could come with a variety of characters, but it made sense for Batman. It was also going to have two kind of shooting blaster darts, if you will, or missiles, because, the bat signal should have missiles, I guess, but that made it good for kids. There was also going to be a whole series of Gotham City rooftops that would have been kind of connectable and interchangeable that would have come with different figures like Nightwing, Robin, and Batman, etc., and Azrael. And then you would have been able to connect them together and kind of make a really cool rooftop diorama type scene for all of your Batman characters. But, again, this was on trend with what Toy Biz was doing, and in the end, it just was not. I mean, look at how big this one was. I mean, there was no way to fit that in package. That was even, compare that to those Sentinel bases that Magneto and Gambit and Iceman came with from the first shot of this video. Huge. No way to fit that in package. And that was a big reason, was just looking at these sculpts. Here's the one for Azrael. It's like, how in the world were these going to fit in the package? The package would have had been redesigned, and that just wasn't going to happen. So, unfortunately, they just never saw the light of day. They were not tooled. These are just sculpts you're looking at. Another proposed character, instead of doing a base, was kind of doing a super deluxe Batman figure where the the tooling or the plastic that would have gone into the bases instead was going to go to enhancing Batman and make kind of this giant robo suit armor for Batman, where he was going to have like these huge legs and stilt legs. And again, this is a line that was also selling to kids as well, so it was meant to be a cool Batman. Now, here's a real lost one. This was actually a figure that never made it. And it's a shame we never even got this into Classics, but it would have been fully tooled was the problem. So this was Firefly, who I absolutely love Firefly's design. He would have been awesome. And we did look at trying to get him into the Classics line, but again, he was fully tooled. So if we had done Firefly, it would have been more like we had to have done him for the Build-A-Figure. And, maybe we could have. Marvel Legends got away with doing the Vulture wings as a Build-A-Figure for a Spider-Man line once, but I don't know. It just seemed like fans really wanted the oversized figures, and they would have said that, why couldn't he be a single release? But he was even planned with this, gigantic base that was going to connect with the whole Gotham City environment thing, and it would have been not only a fully tooled Firefly figure, but this, if everything went forward, this giant, church steeple base so that he could have been flying above Batman's head. It would have been really cool. I really like Firefly, but never happened. Superman and his line, his friends and enemies and frenemies, was also kind of part of this. So the last few waves, again, also planned to have these large bases and oversized accessories. So Bizarro here, you may recall, came with kind of like a piece of a truck, for lack of a better word. It was like a tire and like the axle parts of a truck that he was swung around as a weapon. So while this was really cool as an accessory and just looked like an accessory, it was also originally part of a base that was going to be more torn up pieces of a truck. So, this way he would have had both the tire and the base. And he actually originally had, I think, a slightly different head, which had to be resculpted after comments from DC and Warner Brothers on what he, that I think he was looking a little bit too monstrous, and they wanted to pull back on that a little. Here is another example of a base. This one would have come with Superman. So this was the Daily Planet building. And again, this thing was huge. This was really overambitious. As much as I have so much respect for the Four Horsemen, sometimes when they're just, they just start sculpting, they sort of over-sculpt. There was no way to fit this in a package. This would have had to be like a deluxe figure. Granted, maybe it could have been a cool Comic-Con item, but Mattel really wasn't focused on Comic-Con until 2009, and we're talking 2006, 2007 at this point. So, when giant things like this came along, it was just kind of like, yeah, we can't afford this, we can't fit this in package. And this was a phone booth that would have come with Clark Kent until he was moved into a 2-pack, but originally he was going to be a single figure, and he would have come with a phone booth. Because does anyone even know what a phone booth is anymore? Like, do kids know what that is? It's kind of funny. The blue you're seeing is just tape that was holding it together because it was very fragile. But, wouldn't have had the blue tape on there. That's just markings, if you will. But it just would have been a working phone booth that Clark could have gone inside and would have been a cool display piece. And then wrapping it up is Lex Luthor. So Lex also had to be redone. The original Horseman sculpt on the left was weren't able to get approval on that and had to be resculpted. So that's it. I don't remember exactly why, if it was a superpowers thing or it was looking too retro, but the word came that he needed some to be resculpted a little bit. So that is why. But it's kind of cool to see the Lex Luthor that could have been. Dun dun dun. All right, so that was kind of some look at some hidden treasure from the beginning of the DC line from Mattel. If you'd like to see more videos like this, please comment below. Be sure to subscribe, because once we hit 1,000 subscribers, we definitely have some cool stuff in store. Thank you guys so much, and see you around the internet.